Most people think August is the worst time to plant a garden. The heat is still hanging around. Summer vacations are wrapping up. Kids are heading back to school. And if you're like most homeowners, you're already thinking, I'll just wait until spring. That sounds logical. It's also one of the biggest gardening mistakes you can make. Because while almost everyone is waiting, experienced gardeners are quietly planting some of the easiest perennials you'll ever grow. They know something most people don't. Warm soil is exactly what new roots love. When you plant the right perennials now, they spend the next several weeks building strong root systems underground while the air gradually cools. By the time spring arrives, they're already established, already settled in, and ready to burst into growth, while everyone else is just beginning to dig holes. It's almost like giving your garden a head start before the race even begins. And here's the best part. These aren't fussy plants. They're not the kind that expect you to spend every weekend watering, fertilizing, pruning, and worrying over every little leaf. These are the plants for people who have jobs, people with families, people who travel, people who sometimes forget to water. Or maybe, if we're being completely honest, people who are just a little lazy when it comes to gardening. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Because the smartest garden isn't the one that demands the most work. It's the one that keeps looking better every year while asking less and less from you. Today I'm going to show you 11 incredible perennials that are perfect to plant this August. They'll reward you with stronger roots this fall, bigger displays next year, and years of color with surprisingly little effort. And trust me, by the time we reach the end of today's list, you'll probably wonder why anyone still tells people to wait until spring. Let's get started. Before we jump into the plants themselves, let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions about late summer planting. People see hot afternoons and immediately assume planting season is over. In reality, August offers something spring simply can't. The soil has been warming for months. Unlike chilly spring ground, late summer soil encourages roots to grow quickly. While the leaves aren't trying to explode into growth anymore, the roots stay incredibly active beneath the surface. That's exactly what we want. Instead of spending energy producing flowers right away, these perennials can focus almost entirely on establishing themselves before winter arrives. Come next spring, they'll already have a healthy foundation beneath them. That means stronger growth, more flowers, better drought tolerance, and fewer problems overall. Now, keep in mind there are a few regional nuances to August planting. For gardeners in most northern and mid-climate regions, August is your absolute prime window. However, if you are in extremely hot southern areas like USDA Zone 9 or 10, where triple-digit heat is still raging, you may want to wait until late August or early September, when the worst of the summer burn breaks. A great universal rule of thumb is simply to aim for planting about 6 to 8 weeks before your region's average first fall frost. That gives those roots plenty of time to get anchored before the ground freezes solid. We'll talk more about watering and late-season care toward the end of today's video, but for now, just remember this. August isn't the end of gardening season. For these plants, it's one of the best opportunities you'll get all year. Now, before we start counting down these 11 incredibly low-maintenance perennials, I have something I've been excited to share with you. Before we dive into today's list, I have a major announcement. The gardening guide so many of you have been asking me about is finally here. The Plant Once Garden is officially available. Many of you have been incredibly patient while I worked to make this exactly what I wanted it to be, and I truly appreciate that. It's approximately 150 pages filled with everything this channel teaches, brought together into one complete reference guide. It features a beautiful hand-drawn heritage cover with warm cream-colored pages that feel like something you could pass down for generations. Inside, you'll find 90 perennial plants that come back year after year with very little work, 6 complete garden plans, the no-labor planting calendar, the complete hydrogen peroxide method, the perennials that attract hummingbirds right outside your window, what your garden can become over the next 20 years, and the most common mistakes that shorten the life of otherwise beautiful plants. The goal was simple. Create one guide you can keep reaching for season after season instead of trying to remember everything from dozens of videos. If you'd like your own copy, simply scan the QR code on your screen. or use the link in the pinned comment or description below. Thank you again for all your patience and support. Now, let me take you through these plants. Plant number 1, creeping phlox. If you've ever driven past a hillside in spring that looked like someone spilled an enormous blanket of pink, purple, and white flowers across the ground, there's a good chance you were looking at creeping phlox. This is one of those plants that delivers far more beauty than the amount of work it asks from you. It's a low-growing perennial that spreads into a dense carpet, making it perfect for covering bare patches of soil, softening retaining walls, filling rock gardens, or spilling naturally over the edges of garden beds. Instead of fighting weeds every season, creeping phlox gradually creates a living blanket that leaves very little room for weeds to grow. That's one reason lazy gardeners absolutely love it. Another reason is how dependable it is. It's hardy throughout USDA, zones 3 through 9, meaning it handles everything from cold northern winters to much warmer climates with ease. Give it a location with plenty of full sun, and it'll reward you with one of the most spectacular flower displays you'll see every spring. So why plant it now instead of waiting? Because August gives this plant exactly what it wants. Warm soil allows it to begin weaving together an extensive network of roots, long before winter arrives. By the time spring returns, it's already settled in and ready to explode into bloom, instead of spending its energy trying to establish itself. There is one small maintenance tip worth remembering. Once the spring flowers fade, give the plant a light trim. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to tidy it up and encourage dense, healthy growth for the following season. That's really all it asks. One quick haircut each year. Not exactly a demanding relationship. And that's exactly why creeping phlox earns the first spot on today's list. Plant number 2, Russian sage. If there were an award for plants that actually perform better when you leave them alone, Russian sage would be a serious contender. From a distance, it almost looks like a soft lavender blue cloud floating above the garden. Its tall, silvery stems sway gently in the breeze, adding movement and texture long after many summer flowers have begun fading. It instantly gives a garden a relaxed, elegant look without demanding constant attention. This perennial grows beautifully throughout USDA zones 4 through 9 and absolutely loves full sunshine. In fact, the more sun it receives, the happier it usually becomes. Unlike many flowering plants, Russian sage doesn't need rich soil. Actually, it prefers poor, well-draining soil. That's one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. They assume every plant needs lots of fertilizer. Russian sage disagrees. Feed it too much, and those beautiful upright stems often become soft and floppy instead of standing tall. Sometimes doing less really is the better choice. August also happens to be one of the best times to get it established. The warm weather encourages quick root development, while the gradually cooling temperatures reduce the stress of establishing a new plant. By next year, you'll already have a sturdy, drought-tolerant perennial that's capable of producing months of soft lavender blue color with remarkably little effort. It's also naturally resistant to deer, handles intense summer heat with ease, and once established, rarely asks for supplemental watering except during unusually dry periods. That's a combination that's hard to beat. And we're only getting started. The next perennial doesn't just bring beautiful flowers. It also turns your garden into a magnet for butterflies, bees, and even songbirds. Plant number 3, coneflower. If you could only grow one perennial for wildlife, coneflower would deserve a place near the very top of the list. Known botanically as echinacea, this tough native perennial has earned its reputation the old-fashioned way, by performing year after year without making life difficult for the gardener. Its large, daisy-like blooms stand proudly above sturdy stems in shades of purple, pink, white, orange, and even yellow, depending on the variety you choose. They're beautiful enough on their own. But what really makes coneflower special is everything happening around those flowers. Throughout summer, butterflies drift from bloom to bloom. Bees work tirelessly collecting nectar. And later in the year, something wonderful happens if you resist the urge to cut everything back. Leave the seed heads standing through autumn. Instead of seeing dead flowers, goldfinches and other songbirds will visit your garden throughout the colder months to feed on those seeds. Suddenly, your garden keeps giving long after the blooming season has ended. Coneflowers are hardy throughout USDA zones 3 through 9 and grow happily in full sun, although they also tolerate partial shade in many regions. They're incredibly adaptable. Heat doesn't bother them. Dry spells rarely slow them down once established. Poor soil isn't much of a problem either, and that's exactly why they're perfect for gardeners who don't want high-maintenance plants. August planting gives coneflowers several valuable weeks to establish a healthy root system before winter arrives. Instead of struggling through their first growing season next spring, they'll already have a strong underground foundation supporting vigorous new growth and heavier flowering. It's one of those simple decisions that pays you back year after year. And coming up next, we're looking at one of America's toughest flowering perennials, a plant with brilliant golden blooms that practically thrives on neglect. Plant number 4, Black-Eyed Susan. If there were ever a perennial that could convince someone they actually have a green thumb, it's Black-Eyed Susan. These cheerful golden yellow flowers with their rich dark centers have become a classic for one simple reason. They just keep showing up, year after year, summer after summer, without asking for much in return. In fact, they're one of the toughest flowering perennials you can plant. Whether you're filling a sunny flower bed, brightening the edge of a driveway, or adding color to a natural-looking landscape, Black-Eyed Susans bring an energy that instantly catches your eye. They look just as comfortable in a carefully planned garden as they do growing along country roads. That's because they were built to handle difficult conditions. Hardy throughout USDA zones 3 through 9, they're equally at home in cold northern winters and warm southern summers. Give them full sun whenever possible, although they'll also tolerate a little light shade, and they'll reward you with months of bright color. One of the biggest reasons they belong on today's list is what happens after August planting. Instead of spending next spring trying to establish themselves, the roots spend autumn quietly storing energy underground while the soil is still warm. That extra head start often means fuller plants, stronger stems, and far more impressive blooms the following growing season. And if you're the type of gardener who likes getting more without buying more, you'll appreciate this next detail. Black-Eyed Susans naturally self-seed. That doesn't mean they'll suddenly take over your entire yard, but over time, you'll often notice new young plants appearing nearby, gradually filling empty spaces and giving your garden a fuller, more established look without costing you another dollar. They're also magnets for butterflies and bees throughout the blooming season, adding movement and life to your garden almost every sunny afternoon. This is exactly the kind of perennial lazy gardeners dream about. Plant it, water it while it's getting established, then sit back and enjoy what it does almost entirely on its own. Plant number 5, Hostas. Every garden has that one difficult area, the place where the sun barely reaches. Maybe it's beneath mature trees, along the north side of the house, or tucked behind a fence where almost everything you plant seems to struggle. That's where hostas completely change the game. Instead of fighting the shade, hostas embrace it. They're grown primarily for their incredible foliage rather than their flowers. And once you see the enormous variety available, it's easy to understand why they've remained one of America's favorite shade perennials for generations. Some varieties have deep emerald green leaves. Others produce striking blue-green foliage. Some feature elegant white edges. Others glow with golden chartreuse tones that almost brighten the shade on their own. The leaves can be small enough to fit neatly into containers, or large enough to become the centerpiece of an entire garden bed. No matter which variety you choose, they bring texture, structure, and a sense of maturity that many flowering plants simply can't match. Hostas thrive throughout USDA, zones 3 through 9, and prefer partial to full shade, making them one of the easiest solutions for those frustrating dark corners of the landscape. August is also an excellent time for planting or dividing hostas. The soil remains warm enough to encourage rapid root growth, allowing the plant to settle comfortably before winter dormancy begins. By spring, those roots are already established and ready to push up a fresh flush of healthy leaves. There is just one thing worth paying attention to. Young hosta leaves can attract slugs and snails, especially in damp gardens. If you've dealt with those pests before, keep an eye on new growth and take action early if needed. Fortunately, once hostas become established, they're remarkably forgiving plants. They don't demand constant pruning. They don't need endless fertilizing, and they continue getting larger and more impressive with each passing year. Sometimes the easiest plants become the most rewarding. Hostas prove that beautifully. Plant number 6, Daylilies. If reliability had a flower, it would probably look a lot like a daylily. This is one of those plants that's been passed from one generation of gardeners to the next, because it consistently delivers exactly what people want. Beautiful blooms, dependable growth, very little maintenance. Daylilies are incredibly versatile. They look fantastic lining walkways, softening fences, filling large borders, covering sunny slopes, or simply adding dependable color to almost any part of the landscape. And with thousands of varieties available, you're not limited to one look. You'll find blooms in brilliant oranges, buttery yellows, rich reds, soft pinks, creamy whites, deep burgundies, and countless beautiful combinations in between. There's truly a daylily for almost every garden style. Another reason they're so popular is their adaptability. They're hardy throughout USDA zones 3 through 9, with some newer varieties stretching into zone 10, and they perform well in full sun while also tolerating partial shade. August planting works especially well because the warm soil encourages the clumps to establish quickly before cooler weather arrives. Over time, daylilies naturally multiply. What starts as a single clump gradually becomes several. After a few years, you can divide those clumps, replant them elsewhere, or even share them with friends and neighbors. It's one of the easiest ways to expand your garden without spending another penny. There is one important caution, though. If outdoor cats regularly visit your property, remember that daylilies are highly toxic to cats. It's something many gardeners don't realize until it's too late, so it's always worth planning accordingly. Aside from that, there's very little to worry about. Give them sunlight. Water them well while they're getting established. Then enjoy years of dependable flowers with surprisingly little effort. That's exactly the kind of investment that pays dividends season after season. We've now covered 6 incredibly dependable perennials, and by now, you can probably see a pattern. The easiest gardens aren't built by choosing plants that need constant attention. They're built by choosing plants that know how to take care of themselves. And speaking of making gardening even easier, I want to take just a moment to share something that many of you have already been asking me about. By the way, if you're enjoying today's list and you're thinking about turning your yard into a landscape that practically takes care of itself, I don't want you to forget about something. The Plant Once Garden is officially available. It's a complete 150-page reference built around everything this channel teaches about low-maintenance gardening. Inside, you'll find 90 dependable perennials, complete garden layouts, the no-labor planting calendar, the full hydrogen peroxide method, common mistakes that shorten the life of your plants, and so much more, all organized into one guide you can return to whenever you need it. If you'd like your own copy, simply scan the QR code on your screen or use the link in the pinned comment below. Now, let's jump right back into today's countdown. Plant number 7, Lavender. Some plants survive because they're tough. Lavender does something even better. It makes your entire garden feel peaceful. The soft purple flower spikes, the unmistakable fragrance, and the silvery green foliage have made lavender one of the most loved perennials in the world. Whether it's planted along a walkway, surrounding a patio, or filling a sunny border, it adds beauty long before you even notice the flowers. You smell it first, and once you've walked through a garden filled with blooming lavender on a warm summer evening, it's something you never really forget. But here's what lazy gardeners appreciate even more. Lavender actually prefers that you don't fuss over it. It's hardy throughout USDA zones 5 through 9, with English lavender being one of the cold-hardiest choices for many gardens. Give it a location with full sunshine and excellent drainage, and you're already giving it almost everything it wants. Notice I said excellent drainage. That part matters. If there's one thing lavender dislikes, it's sitting in wet soil. Heavy clay that stays damp after rain can quickly lead to root problems, especially during winter. If your soil drains poorly, mixing in coarse grit or planting on a slight mound can make an enormous difference. Aside from that, leave it alone. Don't spoil it with rich soil. Don't pile on heavy fertilizer. In fact, too much fertilizer usually produces lots of leafy growth at the expense of flowers. Lavender performs best when conditions are actually a little lean. That's one of the reasons August is such a wonderful planting time. The warm, dry conditions of late summer help new plants establish without dealing with the excessive spring moisture that so often causes root rot. By next year, you'll have a mature plant producing fragrant blooms, attracting bees and butterflies, and adding structure to your landscape for years to come. And as an added bonus, many gardeners love planting lavender near patios and seating areas because its fragrance naturally helps make those spaces more enjoyable throughout summer. Sometimes the easiest plants are also the ones that bring the greatest rewards. Lavender is certainly one of them. Plant number 8, Perennial Salvia. If your goal is to have color that keeps coming back without constantly replacing annual flowers, Perennial Salvia deserves a place near the top of your planting list. Its upright spikes of deep purple, violet, blue, and occasionally pink flowers create a bold vertical accent that stands out beautifully against lower-growing plants. Even better, pollinators absolutely adore it. On a warm afternoon, it's common to see bees moving from flower to flower, while butterflies drift through the blooms, turning a quiet flower bed into one that's full of life. Perennial Salvia grows reliably throughout USDA zones 4 through 9 and thrives in full sun. Like several plants we've covered today, it also appreciates soil that drains well. Standing water is far more dangerous to this plant than an occasional dry spell. In fact, once it's established, Salvia handles drought remarkably well, making it another excellent choice for gardeners who don't want to spend every evening dragging a hose around the yard. August planting gives the roots plenty of time to settle while the soil remains warm, allowing the plant to enter winter much stronger than one planted much later in the season. There is one simple trick that many experienced gardeners use with Perennial Salvia. After the first major flush of flowers finishes, shear the old flower stems back. Not all the way to the ground, just remove the spent blooms. That small amount of work often rewards you with an entirely new flush of flowers later in the season. It's one of the easiest ways to enjoy even more color without planting anything new. Another advantage is that deer and rabbits usually leave salvia alone, making it an excellent option for gardens where browsing animals are a regular problem. Beautiful, reliable, long-blooming, and surprisingly easy. It's exactly the kind of perennial that earns its place year after year. Plant number 9, Sedum, also known as autumn joy stonecrop. Some plants complain the moment the weather gets hot. Sedum almost seems to enjoy it. This is one of the toughest, most dependable perennials you can add to a sunny landscape. Its thick, fleshy leaves tell you everything you need to know. They're built to store water. That means once sedum becomes established, it handles dry weather with remarkable confidence, while many other plants begin showing signs of stress. If you've ever struggled with a hot, sunny corner of the yard where nothing seems happy, this might be the solution you've been looking for. Autumn Joy, one of the most popular varieties, is hardy throughout USDA zones 3 through 9 and thrives in full sunshine. It's also one of the few perennials that actually becomes more interesting as the seasons change. In late summer, broad clusters of flowers begin appearing in soft shades of pink. As autumn approaches, those blooms gradually deepen into richer rosy tones before eventually taking on warm bronze shades that continue providing texture well into winter. The changing colors make it feel like you're getting several different plants throughout the year. August also happens to be Sedum's moment to shine. This is when many varieties are actively blooming, making it easy to see exactly what you're bringing home before you plant it. The warm soil encourages quick root establishment, setting the stage for years of dependable growth. And thanks to those water-storing leaves, established plants become incredibly drought-tolerant. That's one less thing for you to worry about during the hottest part of summer. If there's one word that describes Sedum perfectly, it's dependable. Plant it once. Give it the sunny location it loves. Then enjoy watching it return stronger and more impressive with each passing year. Plant number 10, Catmint. If you've ever admired one of those gardens where soft waves of lavender blue flowers seem to spill effortlessly over the edges of pathways, chances are Catmint was doing a lot of the work. This is one of those perennials that somehow manages to look elegant without ever looking like it's trying too hard. Its soft mounding habit naturally fills gaps between larger plants, softens the edges of borders, and creates that relaxed cottage garden feel people spend years trying to achieve. The best part? It does it with remarkably little effort from you. Catmint is hardy throughout USDA zones 3 through 8 and grows beautifully in full sun, although it also tolerates partial shade in many gardens. Once established, it's incredibly drought-tolerant, making it another excellent choice if you don't want to spend your weekends dragging hoses around the yard. August is one of the smartest times to plant it. The warm soil encourages rapid root development, while the cooler weeks ahead reduce transplant stress. By the time winter arrives, those roots are already anchored deep in the ground, giving the plant a tremendous head start when spring returns. One simple trick makes catmint even more impressive. After its first major flowering period, shear the entire plant back by about 1/3. Don't worry, you won't hurt it. In fact, you're encouraging it. That quick trim often rewards you with another beautiful flush of blooms later in the season while keeping the plant compact and tidy instead of sprawling across nearby plants. It's one of the easiest maintenance jobs you'll ever do, and if you've ever heard that catmint attracts cats, that's absolutely true. Some neighborhood cats may decide it's their new favorite place to nap or roll around for a while. Fortunately, that's usually more entertaining than troublesome. For everyone else, catmint simply provides months of dependable color, pollinator activity, and graceful texture with almost no work at all. That's exactly the kind of perennial lazy gardeners appreciate. Plant number 11, Karl Foerster Feather Reed Grass. I wanted to finish today's list with something a little different. Not another flower, not another ground cover, but a plant that quietly transforms the entire look of a garden. Karl Foerster Feather Reed Grass does exactly that. Sometimes what a landscape needs isn't more color. Sometimes it needs height, movement, texture, a sense of structure that ties everything together. This ornamental grass delivers all of it. Growing reliably throughout USDA zones 4 through 9, Karl Foerster forms a neat, upright clump that stays exactly where you planted it. That's important. Unlike some ornamental grasses that spread aggressively, this one is a well-behaved clump former. It won't wander through your flower beds or become a maintenance headache years down the road. Give it a sunny location, although it will also tolerate light shade, and it quickly becomes one of the strongest architectural features in the landscape. By late summer, slender flower plumes rise well above the foliage, gently swaying with every breeze. As autumn approaches, those plumes mature into beautiful golden tones that catch the morning and evening light in a way that's almost impossible to ignore. Then something remarkable happens. Most flowering plants begin disappearing for winter. Karl Foerster keeps standing. Its upright stems remain attractive through frost, snow, and winter winds, adding movement and interest to a garden that might otherwise feel empty. That's why so many professional landscape designers use ornamental grasses. They provide beauty during every season, not just while flowers are blooming. August planting works perfectly because the grass has plenty of time to establish its root system before entering winter dormancy. Then, when spring arrives, fresh green growth emerges from an already well-established plant. The annual maintenance couldn't be much simpler. Once each year, usually in late winter or very early spring before new growth begins, cut the entire plant back close to the ground. That's it, one cutback, one time each year. The rest of the time, it simply stands there doing exactly what it was planted to do. Bring elegance, movement, and year-round structure to your garden. And for anyone looking to build a landscape that becomes more beautiful while demanding less work over time, that's a wonderful way to finish today's list. Before we wrap up today's video, I want to leave you with 4 simple rules that will make a huge difference, no matter which of these 11 perennials you decide to plant. First, pay attention to your planting window. Try to get your new perennials into the ground about 6 to 8 weeks before your area's average first frost. That gives the roots enough time to establish while the soil is still warm, helping the plants settle in before winter arrives. Second, water deeply instead of watering lightly every day. A thorough soaking 2 or 3 times each week encourages roots to grow deeper into the soil, where they'll be much more resilient during dry weather. Shallow daily watering often creates shallow roots. Deep watering creates stronger plants. Third, don't forget the mulch. Spread a 2 to 3 inch layer of organic mulch around each new planting, but keep it about an inch away from the stems or crown. That simple layer helps conserve moisture, keeps soil temperatures more consistent, and reduces the chances of winter frost heaving damaging newly established roots. Finally, resist the urge to fertilize heavily. Late in the season, your goal isn't lots of tender new leaves. Your goal is strong roots. High nitrogen fertilizer encourages leafy growth that can easily be damaged by early frosts. Instead, let the plants direct their energy underground where it matters most. Follow those 4 simple guidelines, and you'll give your new perennials the very best chance of rewarding you with stronger growth and bigger blooms next year. Today we've covered 11 outstanding perennials that prove one important point. A beautiful garden doesn't have to become a full-time job. Whether you're filling sunny borders with Russian sage and coneflowers, brightening difficult shade with hostas, carpeting slopes with creeping phlox, adding fragrance with lavender, creating months of color with catmint and salvia, or bringing year-round structure with Karl Foerster grass, every one of these plants was chosen for the same reason. They continue giving back year after year while asking surprisingly little from you. That's exactly what smart gardening is all about, working with plants that do most of the heavy lifting themselves. So if you've been waiting for the perfect time to plant, don't overlook August. Warm soil, cooler weeks ahead, and plenty of time before winter make it one of the smartest seasons to establish long-lived perennials that will reward you for years to come. And if you're ready to stop wasting time and money on plants that disappear every winter and finally build a landscape that practically takes care of itself, don't forget to grab your copy of The Plant Once Garden. It's 150 pages filled with everything this channel teaches, all organized into one complete reference you'll use for years to come. Simply scan the QR code on your screen or use the link in the description or pinned comment below to get your copy. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. If you enjoyed today's video, let me know down in the comments which one of these 11 perennials you're planning to plant this August. I genuinely enjoy reading your experiences and seeing what you're growing in your own gardens. Until next time, happy gardening, and I'll see you in the next video.